Welcome to Freedom from Fossil Fuels, an introductory framework on how climate change works, how it threatens us, and how we can fix it. I started making these slides after I, as a non-scientist, was trying to research climate change and was really frustrated by the sources that I found online. It felt like most mainstream media sources didn't really try to explain the scientific background of how and why climate change is unfolding. And a lot of scientific sources didn't always try as hard as they could to make their findings accessible to newcomers like me. So out of that frustration, I decided to try to write the kind of source that I wish I had been able to find when I started researching. And I definitely did not realize at the time how much I was signing on to. This research process took far longer than I expected it would. It was terrifying a lot of the time as I realized what we're up against. But in the end, it was also really exciting and hopeful. It helped me to fully understand where we are in the fight against climate change, which I now realize is going to define the next century. And to those listening, I really appreciate you joining, and I hope that you are going to learn as much from this as I did building it. Before we jump in, let me show you where sources are. You can download this deck at this link. It's also going to be copied in the description of these videos. And once you have that, when we get to slides that have footnotes, like here, you can go and check the detail backing that up either here or the same text is back here in the links. And then there will be links to go back to the slides. So a great place, not just to check the sources or to see additional details that I didn't have space to include in the slides, but also as a starting point for further research if there's any parts of this that you would like to dig further into. This table of contents walks through how these slides are organized. So section 1, how we got here, covers how the greenhouse effect works, how carbon dioxide is emitted, and the pace of warming that Earth is currently on. Section 2 says, okay, based on that, what is at risk? What are the current and the future threats that fossil fuel use and climate change pose to humans? And the third section, which, spoiler alert, is the only optimistic section in these slides, goes through what we can do to fix it. What are the technologies that can allow us to move beyond fossil fuels and reverse climate change? So there are some very important caveats to go through about what this deck is and what it isn't. These slides are the closest I could make to a politically neutral overview of fossil fuels, climate science, and clean technology. Now, they were largely written in the second half of 2020. And this science, our understanding of climate change and the technology we can use to address it is rapidly evolving all the time. So there are definitely going to be findings that will update the information in this deck, but they still should stay a pretty consistent framework that you can fit updates into. It's also a foundation for further research. And what I mean by that is that these slides are not going to provide a detailed game plan for every single question we need to address to deal with climate change. But they are going to set a structure that I hope can be both a strong baseline understanding and a foundation for further research if you choose to dive deeper into this. Now, with that in mind, these slides are not a detailed budgetary or legislative policy proposal. They don't make the case for picking specific clean technologies. They just try to, as objectively as possible, compare our options based on what we know right now, which again is going to be updated as more research is done. They're also probably not going to be groundbreaking for those who already follow climate science closely. I hope they're still helpful as a framework for those who are deeply involved in climate science, but for those who already feel they have a pretty strong background, I definitely encourage you to skip ahead and jump around these slides. Section introductions, so 3 for section 1, slide 10 for section 2, and slide 20 for section 3, each give a slide-by-slide table of contents for that section. So it's easy to jump to those, figure out which slides you'd like to go and cover, which slides you can skip. This narrated version will also go straight through all the slides, so it should be very easy to skip to whichever slides you want to listen to the audio for, and jump around as needed. So definitely encourage readers to consume this deck in whichever way is most convenient and most helpful. So with that, the next video is going to jump into section 1, how we got here.